The Turkish economy is in the ICU.
Inflation in Turkey has reached nearly 80% annually in June.
Inflation.
What would you do if the money in your pocket suddenly became worthless? Imagine watching the prices of everyday goods double overnight while your salary stays the same. For millions of Turks, this is not hypothetical, it's their reality. A country once celebrated as an emerging economic powerhouse is now in the grip of one of its worst inflation crises. The Turkish lira has crumbled, leaving citizens trapped in financial chaos. But how did this happen? Is this the result of political decisions, international pressures, or the collapse of the Turkish lira? Join us as we explore this journey of Turkey's inflation in 2024, from the crash of its currency to the daily struggles of its people. The Turkish lira, once a symbol of national pride, has lost more than 50% of its value over the last few years. This crash did not happen overnight, but has been building for nearly a decade. In 2018, $1 equaled 4.5 Turkish liras, while today $1 equals more than 23 liras, which means the Turkish lira declined by more than 80% over the past 5 years. However, by 2024, the lira hit a breaking point.
A deep depreciation of the currency.
Under mounting pressure, it dropped further against the dollar, euro, and other major currencies, making even basic goods unaffordable. Imported items became luxuries, while essentials like food, fuel, and medicine saw dramatic price hikes. The root cause lies in a mixture of political instability, including authoritarianism, weakening democratic institutions, and tensions with Western allies. The central bank attempted to stabilize the currency by selling reserves, but this only temporarily slowed the lira's decline. Global confidence in the lira tanked, triggering a full-blown currency crisis. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's unconventional economic policies have been at the center of this crisis, reaching a critical stage in 2024. His strategy, known as Erdoganomics, suggests that low interest rates can combat inflation, a belief most economists dispute. Initially, commercial rates were around 30% and consumer rates about 25% in early 2019. Following a decline to lows of approximately 10% for commercial and 15% for consumer loans by late 2021, rates surged again in mid-2023 due to high inflation, with the policy rate reaching around 30% and consumer rates climbing to nearly 40%. Despite inflation surpassing 60%, Erdogan pressured the central bank to cut rates, hoping cheap borrowing would increase growth. Instead, this approach further devalued the lira, creating a high-risk environment for global investors and accelerating capital flight. Thus, Turkey struggled to address inflation without resorting to traditional interest rate hikes, worsening its economic challenges. Turkey's reliance on energy imports made it especially vulnerable to global price fluctuations. The country's energy bills soared to $97.1 billion, contributing to an energy trade deficit of $81.1 billion. As energy costs surged due to geopolitical tensions and supply disruptions, Turkish households faced skyrocketing electricity bills and transportation costs, while businesses struggled with rising expenses. Gas prices doubled, and natural gas consumption rose by 11% in 2023. Meanwhile, Turkey's reliance on Russian energy imports fell from 60% in 2013 to 39% in 2022. The share of coal-fired electricity generation grew from 27% in 2013 to 37% in 2023, with imported coal rising from 54% to 61% of the country's coal supply in the same period. The surge in energy costs was a direct burden on Turkish households and industries alike. As the lira weakened, importing energy became even more expensive, worsening the inflation crisis. The Russia-Ukraine war has significantly impacted Turkey, particularly driving up food prices due to its heavy reliance on agricultural imports from both nations. This dependence on imported grains led to severe supply chain disruptions, causing essential food items like bread, vegetables, and meat to become unaffordable for many. The inflation soared to 85%, affected by rising global food prices fueled by energy cost hikes and trade restrictions. Thus, the shortages of basic goods caused by supply chain disruptions further contributed to rising prices. While other factors played a role, Turkey's dependence on imports and ineffective agricultural policies aggravated the inflation problem. In 2024, Turkey faced worsening climate challenges, significantly contributing to rising food prices. Severe droughts led to a 15% drop in wheat and barley yields, with rainfall down by 28%, worsening food inflation. Water scarcity became critical, with per capita availability nearing the dangerous threshold of 1,000 cubic meters. The summer heat wave, one of the worst in Turkey's history, saw temperatures soar over 45 degrees Celsius, sparking wildfires that destroyed 150,000 hectares of forest. Power outages and water shortages hit several cities, while flooding in northern regions displaced thousands.
First fires, then floods. Hopes are dwindling in this town that missing loved ones will still be alive.
These climate impacts, projected to cost Turkey over $5 billion, added pressure on the agricultural sector, with farmers reporting reduced yields.
It's not easy. It's not enough to cover our labor.
These weather-related disruptions, rising fuel and fertilizer costs, and extreme conditions further worsened inflation as farmers raised prices to cover expenses, impacting consumers nationwide. Amid this economic storm, ordinary Turks are bearing the impact. Wages haven't kept pace with inflation, leaving families struggling to afford basic necessities. The middle class, once growing, is shrinking fast. Many families are forced to make difficult choices, cutting back on food, skipping medical care, or keeping children home from school to save on transport costs. The once thriving Turkish economy now feels like a distant memory as more and more citizens live paycheck to paycheck. To cope, some have resorted to bartering goods and services, while others rely on financial help from relatives abroad. Still, for most, the future is filled with uncertainty. Turkey's central bank raised interest rates from a low of 8.5% in June 2023 to as high as 42.5% in December 2023. Normally, central banks raise interest rates to combat inflation, but in Turkey this traditional approach isn't working. The lira has devalued drastically, and confidence in the government's policies is so low that raising rates may no longer be enough to stabilize the economy. Internal mismanagement, marked by unorthodox economic policies, combined with external pressures from rising global energy prices and geopolitical tensions, has led to Turkey's severe inflation crisis and economic instability. While Turkey's domestic policies have undoubtedly played a large role in this crisis, global factors cannot be ignored. Geopolitical conflicts, disrupted supply chains, and rising energy costs have worsened the inflation problem. Like many countries, Turkey is feeling the ripple effects of global events. The war in Ukraine, tensions in the Middle East,
Growing concerns that the war in the Middle East could explode beyond Israel's borders.
and trade wars between global powers have created widespread uncertainty. Due to its strategic position between Europe and Asia, Turkey is especially sensitive to these global shocks. Though inflation is a worldwide issue, Turkey's unique challenges have amplified its effects.
Economists warn inflation is spiraling out of control, and Turkish consumers are the ones who literally have to pay the price.
Therefore, Turkey's inflation crisis is not the result of a single policy or event. It's the climax of years of political decisions, economic mismanagement, and global forces combining to create a perfect storm. Will Turkey recover from its inflation crisis, or will it remain trapped in a cycle of instability? Only time will tell. Subscribe to Truth, Revealed, to stay intrigued and informed about the ongoing developments in the world's economic landscape.